You get stopped in the siege, you get stopped in the street, you get stopped in trellis.
Matt, are you at home? Have you called him at home?
I have had people call me at home on occasion, residents of the island, say, you know, about issues, but to say, what do you think about, you know, whatever, and, you know, but nothing from the city or the state, just residents calling.
That sounds like it's kind of rare.
Well, because residents don't have any other access, really. If they see you on the street and if there's something on their minds, if you know, if you go to the RIOC meeting and you want to bring up issues, you get blind looks, there's no response. I mean, you guys are representing us. So, I mean, I don't know if you're complaining about it or not, but that's part of, you know, I'm just saying that's part of the job.
No, the question was, do we get called and stopped? And I said, yeah, absolutely, when you're on the board, and especially after the first time your picture appears in the wire, you get stopped, you get stopped on a regular basis, walking down the street at kids' sporting events, people ask you questions about what's going on.
Yeah, I'm sure it's not all that, you know, great moments, but it is part of the job.
Is that a misconception that the RIOC board represents us, the residents? The RIOC board is really, you have a fiduciary duty to the corporation. So how do you see, is there a dichotomy between those two points?
To me, it's just like the President of the United States represents me. He has responsibility, a financial responsibility, a fiduciary responsibility to the country, which means to me. So we have a fiduciary responsibility to the state of New York. Roosevelt Island is the state of New York. I mean, everybody that lives here is entitled to representation from us. We have had discussions on board with some board members who think that we work for the governor. I don't think so. I think we work for the people of Roosevelt Island.
Brings up a really interesting question. I look at the four of you when I start adding up on my fingers and toes. You guys represent something over a half a century of experience living on Roosevelt Island. And with the rest of the board, you're pushing a century. What changes have you seen since we instituted these elections compared to the kind of board where off-islanders were making the decisions? Have you made any determinations about what the differences are?
You know, it's tough to say because you can see some of the discussions that the other people had. I mean, I think to the degree that we do get together, when we do, I think all of our intentions are good. I think we're always looking from the perspective of a resident, and I don't know that, I think it was more of a, let me look at the budget and let me see what we need to stay solvent before. And with us, we always look at it from the perspective of the resident, part of which is staying solvent, obviously. It doesn't do us any good for everybody to be happy and us to go broke. So I think there's more focus on that. I don't think we're as open as we ought to be. I think Vicki's point is very well taken, that at the board meetings we don't interact, and I don't think that's right. I think we should do that, and I wish we did do more of it, and I wish we stood up more to the commissioner and said we're just going to do that.
I spoke to him about that.
And
he said he was open to it.
Well, why don't we just do it?
No, we
He
just,
said
we
he was
tend to,
open.
when,
He said he was
Asking for permission.
yeah.
No, it was just that I was in conversation, I was saying that it's not, I feel that we should be able to speak to the residents that are there, and we should be able to interact. And he said he always thought that should happen also. He thought that was the process.
Right.
Well, I request whoever happens to be president of RIOC at that time, and there are various, over the course of the term, there specifically said, does the president of RIOC have any comment to add to this issue? Since they are, you know, the elected representation of the residents on numerous occasions, about some appointments, because to the corporations, to some issues, their opinion on certain construction projects, mainly about the aesthetic things, because like I said, I really suck at that. But I've asked them, well, what do you guys think about this design or that design? And you know, Matt usually comes up, or you know, prior administrations have come up and said, and given their opinion, representing us, and you said you were representing RIRA. What do you think?
That was a long time ago, Michael.
No, even
that was
recently I called
before towns. That was before towns. Since he's been commissioner, that's never come up. about in terms of referring to, you know, going to Matt? Matt, what do you think as the, you know, the
I've called
head?
him on numerous occasions, I've called Matt on numerous
Okay.
occasions, and once when Matt was available, I bothered Cherry.
The other boss.
And she was rather nervous. So I asked her to represent RIOC, but she was the highest official from RIOC present at that meeting. So we try to do that.
And this also, I think, goes back to Dave's point about the difference between the ex officio members. The director of the budget does go to the audit meetings because she is on that committee. Doesn't go to any of the other meetings. The commissioner, to my knowledge, has never gone to any of the committee meetings. So when they get to the board meetings, they have not been at the committee meetings.
So how can they vote?
They read this stuff and presumably ask the questions that they are irrelevant and then have discussion at the board.
Marie?
Many times it feels like the board members are really in a very hard position, because with all the good intentions, you come to the meeting and then your loyalty kind of starts spreading thin in a way, because you intend to do the right thing and vote a certain way, and from, let's say, the RIOC staff, reports, engineers, they saw at your face so much data that you were not aware of before. And maybe even in the committee meetings, you were presented with different information. And all of a sudden you come to the meeting and another information is presented to you, or some missing information. So you kind of, in a way, getting trapped too at meetings, sitting there and you to decide or to vote. How hard is it? How can you deal with that? Because many times I felt like, there was a lot of pressure from the staff to have you vote a certain way.
And you get the sense that if you don't do it now, the whole
Right.
project can't
There's
proceed.
an urgency, it has to
Right.
go in, this
Yes.
person was elected, this contract was set, and it's like, what would you do?
Yeah.
Where is the loyalty? What's gonna happen? How do you deal with that?
Me personally,
Yeah, all of you,
Yeah,
how do you
that's-
deal with that?
if I really think it's the wrong thing to do, I just don't do it. I just vote no.
But don't you sometimes feel as if you can't even tell whether it's the wrong thing or not? And it's too precipitous and too underinformed?
If I feel underinformed, I don't vote. Or if I don't feel,
Table it.
if I don't feel that we're getting, yeah, we did that.
To be taken.
Yeah, that's what I tried to do with the roof that time. We did it with, what did we just table?
We tabled the security
The
cameras.
security cameras I tabled because I didn't feel sufficiently informed. But there is that, and that's, I think, kind of a carryover from some of the old administration where you would get the stuff that Michael was describing before, running
As you
in the
walk
bottom of
in.
the night, everybody running in, handing you things. And sometimes that still happens, and it is difficult. And you want to support the staff. I mean, you don't want to always be putting down the staff because they are working hard and they're state employees and they're doing what they've done as state employees for all their time. But you can't make a bad decision because of the pressure. You just have to stand up
One
and
of the
say
things,
no.
for me that I've learned is that, and I talked to, so I go to Redeemer and talk to Tim Keller about this. The difference between knowledge and wisdom. You don't always, knowledge in some of my work in engineering is more complicated, but in some ways it's easier because you can run the numbers and you can do the analysis and you can see it's A or it's B. That's pretty easy. Okay. In government, a lot of times, you don't have all the information you need. You're gonna annoy half the people, no matter which way you vote. So sometimes it's more of a question of wisdom, making a decision where you don't have an objective necessary criteria for whether you go A or B, yes or no. But you have to just sort of say, pray and hope you have the wisdom that you're making the right decision. Because you could vote no or table something, but then you have other consequences like I'm trying to think of an engineering example. Like you don't decide to repair something, you don't have the information, but it causes more damage because of water or other issues, or things like that. So there is a certain amount of it where it's more a question of wisdom than knowledge, and hoping that you're wise enough for the decisions that you're making, and we don't always feel that we are. That's a challenge to deal
And
with.
there is the pressure of public opinion too.
Yeah.
You know you're going to get beat up in the paper. You know you're going to get beat up on the blog. You know people, not necessarily by you, but by bloggers. Red like this past week's wire. That wasn't so much fun. That's tough. You know, you're walking down, these are your neighbors. And everybody is, I won't say everybody, some people are on your side and some people are in your face, but the in your face ones that are the loudest and the most irritating. And so you gotta be pretty tough skinned.
So just to continue 1 second, so sometimes when you did vote a certain way, like anybody wants to answer, and then the people at the street ask you, how did you do this? Why did you do it? Did you have any feeling like, maybe I should have been changing it, maybe I should have been doing something different?
Of course, that happens often. I mean, often. I shouldn't say often, but it would be normal if you didn't have that opinion sometimes. Sometimes it is. I did. Sometimes I did the right thing. This is what I wanted, and I'm okay with it. But I think it's normal sometimes to wonder if you've done the right thing, especially when you get something at the last minute. But I think most of us have, I personally have decided that if they're giving us information at the last minute and I don't know anything, I'm going to ask for it to be taken regardless. I think that's the way we should, at least that's what I'm going to do from now on. We need to know whenever they do this to us, and then they will stop doing it. I think when we begin tabling, because of the last minute information, last minute changing what they've given us, I think they will stop doing it.
I can tell you, I've been going to board meetings for 10, 11 years now, and I've seen a real change in the nature of the voting over the last 3 years. I've seen a lot more issues tabled for more information than I ever saw before. I've seen a lot more contested votes rather than unanimous votes, which was the name of the game for years and years ago. And I think that's all for the good. It means that issues are understood and debated, and that's never a bad thing. Don, you had something.
I was just saying, sometimes you look at the facts and you think you're going the right way, and you could be wrong anyway. That's part of life.
And some of the stuff is just boring as hell. And sometimes you just say, all right, this is a $10,000 tires, axle that they want for this truck. I know nothing about trucks. You gotta trust people. You gotta just say, go ahead and do it. But sometimes things just don't make sense. You look at a whole big proposal and you may not know enough about it, but you look at some of the piece parts and think, well, this is way too much to spend for that, because I happen to know about that one particular thing because I've done this before at my own house or whatever, and it seems way out of proportion. And then that gives you the clue to say, hey, look at this, take me through this in more detail. And then you just kind of stay away from it.
I'm sorry.
Some of it also is sticker shock. We're used to a private pricing for some of these items. This is state pricing, union work, lots of liability insurance, lots of performance guarantees, hopefully. And sometimes the results leave something to be desired. We're working on the plaza now, right? Well, of course, we chose the smallest qualified contractor. Now, they were reviewed, their work was checked by staff. We rely on staff to tell us the truth of the matter and to make judgments as to whether they would be qualified. But they were small enough that their own scheduling and their own miscue made the schedule slip. So what's the response? Well, the staff is watching them, maybe more carefully now than before. Work is getting done, but it's not being done on a timely basis. And under the contract, there's some penalties there, which is, doesn't make up for the fact that it's not done yet. But we're constantly looking for low bids on these things. They're complicated, they're expensive, and hopefully we'll have enough time to make good judgments about these things. But we're also relying heavily on staff to be professional in searching out appropriate contractors, in monitoring performance, in setting we don't always read full contract terms. A lot of the board motions, which you'll notice as you start to look through the material, is empowering the
Something I
organization.
particularly hate.
Right.
Fix that next.
We're going to be fixing that, hopefully. But it's been empowering the organization to let contracts to accomplish these goals.
And we haven't actually seen the contract. We gave them permission to enter our contract to do something, I want to see the contract.
So in the final analysis, after all the hard work you guys put in to volunteer your time to be on the RIOC Board of Directors and all the headaches that are involved in it, what's the benefit to you as individuals and other people? You do it for a reason.
I feel like I'm putting in my time. I did it for the community because I felt like we worked very hard to get elected representation here, and if people didn't run, then it would have all been for naught. And I like to think, at least I know where my head and my heart are at when I'm up there, and I know the decisions I make are going to be, in my mind, for the better for the community, and that's what I want on the board. So at least I know there's one seat getting filled that way. That's and everybody else.
I think, especially now, anyone from the community who's on the board has volunteered to better the community. So, first, everyone has a correct intention, no matter how they got there. They're there out of concern for their neighbors, trying to build the community that some people envision. What the vision is complicated. What the results will be, hard to say. I mean, General Development Plan dates from the 60s. It was conceived as part of the master lease. And of course, it's been amended, sometimes ad hoc. And it talks about our role, I believe, as a development agency and an operations agency to augment the basic city services. So, to the extent that we're creating a community that has special attractions compared to our neighbors half a mile either way, we've succeeded. It's a safe community. We have public safety. Is public safety overstaffed? Are we spending too much on it? Hard to know. We have to judge by results as we go. Do we have too much staff? Again, hard to know. We have to judge by the results as they emerge. Some parts of the operation work very, very well. Luckily, because we don't have a lot of time on our hands to fix them if they weren't. Particularly thinking about finances. The reporting, the control there seems to be exemplary.
Yeah.
So that's
Yeah.
lucky.
A lot better.
A lot better.
Yeah. So,
Well, I think we all entered, at least I wanted the election process to work, and I knew that we needed to get people to run, and that, I think, was a big problem. We did not have a lot of people. In fact, I was surprised I was appointed, basically. But I'm appointed, I'm gonna always do the best that I can do, regardless. But I entered wanting to do the best I could for the community, but I found that it's not so easy. It's not so easy. And you cannot please everyone, even myself. Because there's a lot of things I don't like, but I can't change it. Or it was the plans of a lot of things were decided in the past, and all we can do is work with it. I'm still fighting over the last buildings that are being built, within myself that is, because I know they're going to be 29 stories high. And I'm not thrilled about that, but that was something that was decided before we came in. And the best we could do is try to, I guess you might say accept it, work around it, make it as pleasant as we can. But that goes with everything that happens with the RIOC. I just try to do the best I can. I know I can't, we can't please everyone. We can only take the knowledge that I've used RIOC. Supposedly, they're supposed to give us the best information. So I think the main problem is to make sure they are giving us the best information. And our job is to take that information and make a decision accordingly. And as you've just heard, well, Sometimes we may not be given the best information. And well, I think that's one thing we could probably work on, by not accepting or seeing the contracts as Michael would suggest. We should see the contracts. We should see more. Maybe not, we have to change things. We have to also remember that RIOC has functioned a certain way for a long time. And it has taken the board some time to even get a footing on everything and to see how it works, what's the mechanism. And it, at least, I think when my election was up, when my term was up, it was as, wait a minute, I'm just getting my feet wet here. So it's very difficult. I'm still learning, and I think everyone is still learning. Some of us are more knowledgeable, and I depend upon other people, and we depend upon RIOC, the office. We're paying people to do research for us. We don't have time to delve into everything, but they should be honest and give us all the information, then we can make better decisions. But I really would like to do as much as I can for the community. But if I don't win, let's say if I run, I don't win, I'm okay with it. I'm all right. Someone else hopefully will take on the challenge and think of us as best they can. But there's so many things that we do not or cannot do, such as I think we've got the most headache. People are very unhappy with the development plan that's going on now, the renting of all of the stores. But look how long we haven't had any stores here on. They have not been rented. I mean, there's a lot of problems, there's a lot of negatives, and there's some positives, but it's the beginning. So I just think that anyone that's interested in running, you just have to jump in there and go for it, study a lot, have time, try to balance it. It's kind of hard, especially if you have your hands in a lot of pots. So it's a lot of work. So I'm going to excuse myself. I must leave.
I am going to bring this to a scrutiny.
Did you want to let Michael
So,
finish?
but I wanted to mention,
Michael should say
I
something.
wanted to mention, oh, did you have a
Only
closing?
Closing, I just want to look at the term. When we started, we didn't have any budget, and we had all these infrastructure issues. Has the board made a difference since we started the process and the members actually live here? Under various people who come on and off the board. Most of the street lights are working now. Most of the road is repaired right now. The soccer fields have all been, the fields have been repaired and are usable now. You've got, the kids playing in the playgrounds. The community has some input in the public purpose funds. They have control of public purpose funds, which would never have happened in the past. So have we been able to make some incremental improvements to the day-to-day life of the island? Yeah, I think that the board has. We've replaced a whole bunch of the staff, and I think we made some improvements. I don't know if you remember 8 years ago, I think most of the streetlights, at least half of the streetlights were out.
Countdown.
Yep.
And we used to have constant counting, but we had to bring up all the electrical equipment and put in all new street lighting and to get those regular repairs. And that was a huge issue, yeah. That was a big business issue. And
the company that replaces all
Well,
of those.
facts.
so sometimes it's little things, but as the board, can you influence the priorities of the corporation to say, we need you to fix this right away? And that's something you can do.
What I wanted to bring up is
As far as our
that
bigger issue, we gotta figure out.
we in fact have a procedural manual document that goes into some of the details if you folks are considering running. And we're also, now that we have a date for this first election, we're preparing a timeline. And Ashton has some material that she will tell you.
Yes, she does. Okay, so, and as a lead into that, I would like to say, I'm happy that we have people here at all tonight. Some of us were worried about whether anybody would show up. But most of the people here are people who are working on the election rather than considering running. I'm pretty confident of that statement. So I'd like to encourage you all to talk to your neighbors whom you think would make good candidates and try to recruit people to run for this. We have 3 seats open. It would be horrible if we had fewer. 6 candidates or fewer running for 3 seats. I mean, we've got 2 people running, thank heavens for that part.
Can we ask if anyone here is thinking of running? Anyone in the audience?
Consider.
Considering? No, I don't always.
So you're considering running?
Dave, are you toying with it?
I'm listening.
That's great. Let me just tell you this. Excuse me for a second. I did kind of printed out the page, the first page of the website. What I'd like to do is pass these out and ask you to take a couple of them, use them for recruiting people, send people to the website. You know, if you've got somebody who seems to be interested, send the person to the website to look at all the material. But we really need good candidates, and we need as many as we can recruit. So pass these around, and relative to the timeline, I didn't have a chance to make a lot of copies of this, but I'll take a copy so you can do something with it. On the website, let me just grab one for one so I can make a point. On the website, there's a spot down here at the bottom of the front page called Dates to Remember, and that will lead you to a page that looks like this that has a timeline on it. The most important date for people to know about relative to the candidates is that the deadline for submission of applications, the deadline for submission of your application for nomination and your petition is Sunday, January 22nd. And the nomination form has to be notarized, and petitions require 50 signatures by adult residents, people who are 18 or over. So get out, recruit your neighbors, make sure they know what's.
You might mention that they don't have to be registered to vote, they don't have to be U.S. citizens, any resident of the island.
No, be a candidate, big candidate.
Oh, they can, right, for the signatures.
Yes, oh, right, for signatures, you didn't have to be a resident.
And while we have a paucity of notaries on this island, I'm one.